Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kara Joseph, and I'm the Training Programs Manager here at Creative Manitoba. We are very excited to be bringing you this program in partnership with Arts Accessibility Network Manitoba once again this year. Creative Manitoba and Arts Accessibility Network Manitoba are based on Treaty 1 territory on the original lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the national homeland of the Red River Métis. As we come together to create and learn, we want to acknowledge and pay respect to treaties that were made here and honor the original caretakers of this land. So I invite you to join us in considering the histories of colonialism, dispossession, and resistance as we dedicate ourselves to moving forward and creating in the spirit of reconciliation. Without further ado, I'm very pleased to welcome Black Triangle Arts Collective here today, and I'll let Ian Syrus take it away.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Cara. I'll go ahead if you want, Syrus, or yeah, you're good. So I'm Elizabeth Sweeney. I'm currently in Ottawa on the unsurrendered, unceded territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation. And I'm originally from rural Nova Scotia, which is the land of the Mi'kmaq, so Mi'kmaqi. Yeah, and my pronouns are she, her, or any pronoun is cool with me. And yeah, we can talk a little bit about our access needs for today. Mine are that I probably won't read very much. I'm just going to talk off the cuff, so I might get some things wrong. And yeah, I think that's it for me. Sai, how are you doing today?
Hello, everyone. My name is Syrus Marcus Ware. I use he, him pronouns. I'm really excited to be joining you today. I'm here on Toronto Island in Tuggeranto, in the area colonially known as Toronto, in the part of Tuggeranto that was underwater at the time of the Toronto Purchase, making this the unceded territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. Three Fires territory, home to some great peacekeeping systems, including the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the District One Spoon Wampum. Really thankful to be here in this area on Toronto Island, where it's been a home of activity for a very long time and where ceremony is regularly practiced here. My access needs, I've thrown my back out. So I'm kind of on an angle. I don't know how to make the angle less dramatic, but I'm on an angle as I'm just reclining to support my back. But as long as I can do this from lying down, my access needs are being met. Yeah, thank you. And we wanted to just have an opportunity to just hear from everyone, just briefly, your name, pronouns, and if you had any access needs for today's session. So maybe I can pass it to someone, and then maybe you could pass it to someone if that works. If you wouldn't mind, maybe I could pass it to you, Brent.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, my name is Brent. I go by he, him pronouns, but you can use any with me. I'm good. I am in Winnipeg. I'm here representing Winnipeg Punk Rock Flea Market, which I don't know where everybody here is from. If you knows, I see Peter's on the call. We've worked with Peter before. And yeah, I have no specific access needs. Yeah, I'm just here to, listen and learn.
Thanks, Brent.
I guess I can pass it to Peter since I see him there.
Oh, your microphone's off, Peter.
Thank you. There's always one. Hi, I'm Peter. My pronouns are he, him. I'm here to listen and learn. I'm from Winnipeg.
Cool. Thanks, Peter.
And
Kim?
I will pass it to Kim because she just popped up.
Hi, my name's Kim LaFontaine. I'm from the Paw, Manitoba. I like to do make junk journals and art journals and anything paper creative, scrapbooking, cards.
Thanks, Kim. Is there anyone else on the call who'd like to introduce themselves?
I can go, Elizabeth. Michael Peterson, he, him pronouns. I'm actually a colleague of Elizabeth's at Canada Council, but excited to hear about her work outside council. Métis, originally from Saskatoon, but now in unceded, unsurrendered Anishinaabe Algonquin territory. No access needs for me, other than I'll probably sit with my video off so I can just listen.
Thanks, Michael. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining. Anyone else want to introduce themselves on the call? If not, that's totally okay. All right, cool. Well, if there's not, then we can get started. But if there are any access needs that come up during our presentation, you can just stop us. You can put your hand up. You can say whatever you need. And we're here to kind of just switch it up as needed. So don't hesitate to ask if that changes. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how the Black Triangle Collective kind of came to be and why we use that symbol. And then Syrus is going to talk a little bit about some of the projects we've done together. So a decade ago in 2014, World Pride came to Toronto, and Syrus was curating an exhibition at the Gladstone Hotel called That's So Gay. And as Syrus does, he was forefronting intentionally queer disabled artists in this exhibition. And he invited me to participate, which I was very grateful to do. And I really wanted to think about the space that we were in, the Gladstone Hotel. For those of you who don't know it, at the time in 2014, it was a bit of a queer art epicenter, I would say. I think that that's relative to what it was at the time. It was really at the time one of the main places for queers and artists to kind of come together in a space, because there aren't a ton of like queer spaces necessarily like that. But the thing with the Gladstone Hotel is that it was also a rooming house that served a really important space for a lot of folks to live in, and probably supported a lot of folks who were psychiatric survivors from the institution across the street. And it supported a lot of people to live there. And it was gentrified to become this trendy arts queer space that we were kind of populating during World Pride. And so I really wanted to think about that and think about those kind of intersections a lot. And the work of the Black Triangle kind of came out of this sort of site-specific space. And so I started thinking about the Black Triangle, and the Black Triangle was a symbol used by the Nazis during the Holocaust to label different kinds of folks. And it was used to label, in particular, folks that were deemed as like, quote unquote, work shy or asocial. And this was a really diverse group of people. It was very commonly understood as the label that was given to disabled people, people who were psychiatric survivors, who lived with disabilities or who were deaf, were all labeled with the Black Triangle. But so were a lot of other people, people who were considered less productive. So lesbians were often labeled with the Black Triangle for their lack of human reproduction or engagement in marriage, let's say. Draft dodgers were labeled with the Black Triangle for their resistance to war efforts. Sex workers were deemed with the Black Triangle, which is kind of odd because maybe they were quite productive. I don't know. Folks living with addiction were labeled with the Black Triangle. And we can also assume, I imagine, that trans folks were probably labeled with the Black Triangle as well. And it was a huge kind of interesting swath of folks. And there's a lot of connection to this labeling as unproductive or unuseful to the roots of ableism, which is also the root of a lot of other isms, including racism and homophobia. And this intersection across these identities really became apparent to me, particularly in this space of the Gladstone, which was a gentrified space, gentrified by queers at that, to also displaced disabled folks. And so that's where sort of the work or the idea around the Black Triangle started to emerge. And Syrus and I, after that exhibition, started talking about the ways in which we wanted to work across this kind of vast intersection of identities and experiences that kind of all fell under this label, but also beyond it. And so after that, Syrus and I also curated a show at the Robert McLaughlin Gallery called Repurpose, which was also kind of trying to explore ways in which that we could make experiences in galleries more accessible, but also trying to strive to have a real kind of vast intersection in terms of the folks who are in the space with us. And so following that, we really kind of formalized the Black Triangle Arts Collective and sought out to create work that was perhaps both curatorial and artist, that we weren't necessarily trying to just curate exhibitions necessarily, but we were striving to engage in this kind of intersection of identities and themes across also these relationships of like curator artist, to create a space for us to work together. And this is where Existence is Resistance kind of came about. And maybe I'll hand it over to Syrus to talk a little bit about Existence is Resistance, which was one of our, I guess, our first major projects.
Yeah, thanks so much, Elizabeth. Yeah, existence and resistance. Existence is resistance. I'm finding that challenging to say this morning. Maybe it's the Rebaxa set. But it was an art residency program that connected artists across a great distance from the UK to Ontario. That was all artists who were working at the intersection of Black justice, crip culture, disability arts. And it was this incredible gathering that we had been planning where we were going to, do some connecting and then meet for this in-person residency in Ontario, bringing together these artists. And the artists from Ontario were Peter Owusu-Ansah, Lily Iko Davis, Keisha Williams. From the UK, there was the incredible artists Ria Righteous, Sunny Nwachukwu, and Soraya Aisha. And we were working with our collaborator, Tarek El Mutawakil, as a co-facilitator, co-faculty, and co-curator of the residency. And we had the best laid plans. And then, of course, what happened was a pandemic, a global lockdown, and a need to rejig how we were going to do this. Rather than focusing on a culminating week-long residency in Toronto, we shifted our work to create a 6-month-long online engagement that brought artists together in ways that we couldn't have imagined, in ways that were really rooted into what was happening in the social world, rooting into disability justice, to care collectives, rooting into this idea that we take care of us, this idea of sort of radical interdependence, this way of rooting into care work and care practices, rather than just tickety-boo rushing through an art project to, write up the final report. That was not what this was. We ended up having a much deeper, perhaps more profound engagement than we could have ever imagined. We met every 2 weeks, and artists came together. There were artist talks, there were presentations. We gave each other critical feedback and engagement with our work. And we had an opportunity to talk about this intersectional space of Black crip culture. And it was really quite an amazing experience. We ended up documenting a lot of our residency time. We were meeting on Zoom. We were meeting in this virtual environment, and we recorded all of our sessions, and we wove those together to create a bit of a visual storybook of our experience. And we wanted to just share what the Existence is Resistance experience was like through this short video. We worked with colleague Remy Huberdeau, who helped us to craft this content into a short segment. So I'll pass it to you, Elizabeth, but if you could cue it up, we're going to show you this video that just takes you through a bit of the experience of this residency, which, again, bringing together these Black crip artists from the UK and Ontario to do work that we could have never imagined.
All right, here we go. Let me know, put hands up or something if you can't hear it.
How can we center Blackness in and our embodiments, languages, cultures, disabilities within our practices? And how can we talk about our practice?
One of the reasons that I'm really excited about this access assistant is that thing, like I said, and like, I wonder who I'll be when I have the right support. Do you know what I mean? Because so much energy is spent like not going for things because I know that the access is not going to be right for me, or starting things and then like it, you know, for example, I wrote a play for quite a prominent theatre, and it was so stressful for my body and mind that I think I was a bit traumatized by it. So even when they asked me to do more opportunities, I've been like, as a working class disabled person, I don't actually feel like I can do that. So, you know, you kind of, but then I think it's only in this space that I've been able to say the reason I haven't taken those opportunities is because of those reasons. Before I was just like, oh, I just beat myself up because I didn't do it and all these kind of things. But you realize that, you know, it's just not sustainable a lot of the time to work in that way. So yeah, it's been really encouraging actually to hear some of you in terms of, also I said to Tariq, I don't remember if I said this already, it's really nice for me to be in a group where I'm one of the younger ones. I don't know, I'm assuming that I'm putting myself into a baby role. I think me and Sonny are probably similar age, but you know, like, because I think a lot of the time I am in that, like, it's just inspiring for me to see different people's patterns over their age, like, as well. That really helps me feel like, oh, there's no ideal age or something like that.
This is Tarek speaking, and I just wanted to say that I felt very much there's this thing that doesn't get spoken about, and I feel like it's especially true for people who are marginalized, and especially true when you're marginalized in a number of ways. It's when you're given an opportunity and then it feels like a burden, but we can't express that because it's an opportunity. We have to just be grateful. And if we express that it's a burden, someone might not give us another opportunity again. And so we just have to carry this on our own, this thing that feels really heavy that we should just be grateful for and getting on with. And it's a really horrible feeling.
I spend a lot more time considering the sacred process of creating those spaces more than anything else. And my route into that kind of work, I think, was performance art as well. Studying performance art, I could see something within that practice, but it felt to me that I was seeing a lot of white people doing stuff, doing these actions. I didn't ever see many Black people in performance art. But I was really called to it. And then I realized that actually these are very ancient practices that for some reason privileged white peoples are tapping into, but this is actually, it was very much an ancestral calling for me. And so, yeah, that's what I've been doing. And I love it so much when I'm connected to that. I love it so much. Yeah, thank you.
It's like in the society, I don't have a voice. I don't have a voice. There's nothing there for me to be a part of. I mean, the way it is designed, it's that everybody have to hear. So the people who controls the society basically thinking about those who can hear. That means that they're not thinking about anybody who's deaf. So every day I feel like my voice is missing. And I'm always trying to figure out a way to add my voice to it.
Now, like, they've decided basically that, like, the powers that be, quote unquote, have decided that, like, money is more valuable than human life. You know, like, that's the real of it. And it's so intense. And I think that, but like noticing that and being present to that has allowed me to really like be the person who's fighting for my life, like, you know, like, and I really heard that in what you were saying earlier, Soraya, and like really everyone today, like we have to be like, we have to say no, and we have to draw boundaries, and we have to stay home or whatever we need to do to live. Like, we aren't going to make it through this if that's not our, like, you know, and like, yeah, I don't know. I think the powers that be, like, do not care, especially about disabled folks. Like, you know, and older folks, and like, just, yeah, it's a lot. And I think that us being together helps us stay alive, you know?
Sorry, I'm so moved by you and your work. So I'm getting emotional. You said it was like we can both look and we can see the sunrise together, and we're both like, wow. And I wanted to say very simply, you said first about the sunrise and wow. And then when I saw your work, I felt like, wow. And then for me, when I see the sunrise, I feel it's a gift from Creator to remind me how miraculous life is, but also how I am also a miracle. And it's wow. And when I see your art, I feel wow. Same way.
I always felt like in some way we can connect. We can in some way. So that what I feel is possible. I need to bring that out. I believe that what we all feel that is possible, we need to bring that out. Help us to taste what you are here for. This is what I'm on earth for. I've been trying to hear all my life. And I mean, that system have failed me all the way. And finally I decided that, okay, this is how I'm going to communicate. Because I've been there and really knowing how I stood in the landscape and look at the sunrise, and another person, total stranger, who look at the sunrise, and we look at each other like this, and we point to that, and it was communication from one direction. It was not worse, you know. So I thought that was preferred way to communicate for me, and that's what I'm using. So yeah,
it's especially in the arts, like I've always kind of felt as if I'm a imposter as well, and it's like it kind of takes quite a long time to get over that. And
if I can reflect, when you said about feeling like an imposter, that immediately brought into my mind a similar thing of being, you know, that imposter syndrome, and then thinking that, you know, a lot of white people who work in the arts, for example, a lot of people who, or not so just white people, white, straight, blah, 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 whatever, people who have got the tick boxes of supposed privilege, we'll talk about imposter syndrome, and then, you know, they realize that actually it's just, you know, it's mental, and they can carry on with their lives once they realize And then I think about when you're actually a marginalized person, that imposter syndrome that we also experience, we're also told to get over, but actually we kind of are imposters in some way, and that the environment is not really in some way apparently built for us, except that I like to think of us as wildflowers. And our very nature is to like blow in through the doors and like take over if we wanna, you know, if we can find a crack somewhere that we can get into and then propagate from there. So that's maybe what when I think about myself as an imposter in the future, I'm going to think of myself, remind myself that we're wildflowers. And our very nature is to go, is to actually, if you want to exist anywhere, we're wild.
So that was just a taste of what we were up to and some of the depths of the quality and the content of the conversations that we had over those 6 months together, meeting online. It was profound to get to have that time together. One of our participants carried a baby, during the time that we were together, and near the end of our time together gave birth to the baby, and then the baby was at the last couple of sessions. So really beautiful experience to get to share this time with these human beings and to get to co-facilitate with Tarek and Elizabeth. And it was part of the work of the Black Triangle Arts Collective, which really is to interrupt some of what was happening, what we saw happen with disability studies, what we've seen happen with the disability rights, so-called disability rights movement, and what we didn't want to happen with disability arts, which was an erasure of BIPOC voices, stories, narrative, a lack of intersectional approaches, and a rooting into sort of unspoken white supremacy that really wasn't serving anybody. And so this program was an example where we really rooted around Black, queer, crip experiences and had these participants coming together across distance, which is something that isn't always afforded to disabled artists. Even for non-disabled artists, it can be hard to connect across distance, but there is, there are programs, there's grants now, there's funding, but for disabled artists, they're still not often getting those opportunities. So this was really radical and really rooted into some of our core values of what we're on about at BTEC.
Yeah, absolutely, Syrus. And I think just to add on to that, I think what kind of comes out in that video too is that it's connected to our survival, right? And that this notion of interdependence is like not just like a theoretical concept, but it's like rooted in our necessity to survive. And I think that project in particular was like a demonstration of like whatever ways in which we need to come together to be interdependent with each other, we need to do that, and even if it's virtual. But I think what's also so powerful about that piece, and I think also just about meeting Tarek and connecting with those artists in the UK was just that like there are so many artists, right? That like these communities can kind of span so many distances, and there were so many overlapping experiences and things to learn from each other. So anyway, that's kind of the gist of a lot of the things we wanted to talk to about today, but we also just wanted to like open it up for discussion and talk about, what's been going on in Manitoba or other experiences or questions folks might have or anything else. Syrus, was there anything else you wanted to add in?
Really just to say, one of the things that's wonderful about BTAC is that we get to work with different collaborators in different ways. And so our collective is always growing, changing, expanding. And so, excited to sort of think about where we're headed next and what we might work on next. We've been doing a lot of academic writing, curatorial writing, and sort of reflecting on what we've been up to. And that's been really exciting. But definitely watching that video, I was like, oh, yeah, we should do another gathering.
Yeah.
So, we actually went on a trip together to the Unlimited Festival in the UK in 2019. And little did we know, but that was one of our first BTAC research trips.
Yeah, that's so true.
We met Tarek Mutawakil at that time in the UK. They were presenting as part of Unlimited. and they hosted their famous event, Brownton Abbey, which is this intergalactic crypt space church, they call it, that is this party space that celebrates and honors disabled, deaf, and mad artists and creators and features them as selectors and performers and rappers. There's costumes and designs and this beautiful disabled, deaf, and mad dance party. That's about connection, that's about community building, that's about coming together. And that was part of the Unlimited Festival as well. And so we got to sort of connect with these folks at that time and got to hear about Ria Righteous and got to hear about some of these other performers who we later got to connect with. So thinking from that point, we knew we wanted to work with Tarek on something, and Existence is Resistance. Existence to Resistance became a project to get to collaborate on. So I'm excited for where we head next. And then lastly, I'll just say we're both artists as well. And so as curators and as programmers and as creators, we're always also attending to our own curiosities and our own artistic practice. And we both had the opportunity to be part of Kenny Fry's exhibition at the Schwule Museum in Berlin in Germany. And shared work that we had both created independently. As part of that exhibition, I had some video work in the exhibition. But Elizabeth, it was amazing to see coming full circle the black triangle, the felt triangle that you mentioned at the beginning of this presentation from the Gladstone Hotel, now reimagined and represented in this German context. And having some of the text and some of the posters related to that original offering, and introducing that to an entirely different audience was really beautiful to see that sort of coming full circle. So very thankful for the chance to be part of this collective, and excited for what we might get up to next.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to hear questions or have a bit of a discussion with everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Syrus. Anyone have any questions or anything they want to just reflections or anything?
I just wanted to note that when they were speaking, there was a few of them that acknowledged that opportunity might come to us, but physically and emotionally, we can't fulfill the opportunity because we don't have the energy. I've tried and worked myself silly and went, I can't do this. I can't physically do this. I went to a conference that was local for 3 days for artists, and I was pretty much crippled for a month after from sitting in the conference. And so you really have to think about what am I doing my art for? Am I doing my art just for me? Or am I doing it because I want to teach? And then if so, how can I do that so that I'm still working within my limitations and learning how to pace myself, which I'm not very good at. But it was interesting to hear other people speaking that same language and understanding that we have to somehow figure out how to work within our limitations, but to be true to ourselves and to look after ourselves at the same time.
Absolutely, Kim. And I think you're speaking to the myth of independence, right? Like we talk about independent artists all the time.
Yeah.
And I think what is really powerful about this project and others is this idea, and I think even just like working collaboratively in a collective model with Syrus, like it would have been really impossible for either one of us to have the time and capacity to maybe pull off a 6-month, every 2-week artist residency. But because we worked with there was 3 of us with Tarek as well, that we depended on each other. And I think that's the thing that I'm learning too as a disabled artist, is just that like this concept of interdependence is so critical to our way of working, that we can't just, it's so hard to just do it alone, and it's less fun. Right? Like it's so rewarding, and but also just, I think it's required for our survival is to depend on each other and to work collaboratively or interdependently. But you're absolutely right. And I think the burden of opportunity, right, that Tarek talked about, that you're talking about, that's so often like we're invited into like normative spaces and expected to just like fit in. And and that's the myth, right? Is that these spaces weren't built for anyone to fit in. Yeah. Thanks for that, Kim.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm teaching a disability deaf and mad arts residency right now on Toronto Island. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the talk, I've thrown my back out. And, I was thinking about that. Why does this always happen, right? When we have these opportunities and these great things, our bodies kind of, react and remind us that we're alive. And, it is interesting to think about, but what I was reflecting on was how glad I am that this is a CRIP residency, because of course everybody gets it. Everybody's going to get needing more time. I mean, we build more time in, and that's one of the reasons why this residency existence resistance was 6 months, is that CRIP things take longer, and we don't always have the spoons for an 8-hour day. So then maybe we're doing them in these small chunks and spacing them out. And so, there's an understanding here at this residency that I'm at now that things are just going to be taking a little longer, and that I'm going to be doing things from lying down, and there's a familiarity with each other because we've all likely been in some similar experience. Whereas in non-disabled spaces, or spaces that are sort of in a more normative culture, or mainstream culture, there's often, I think, a tendency or a desire to push past our
Push through.
just push through, exactly, to prop yourself up and to just keep going, even if it's causing pain or upset to yourself. And I really resonated when you said that, Kim. Just this, we can be realistic about what our bodies can and can't do. We can be realistic about how many spoons we have in a day, and we can, do just enough. We don't need to do more. We are enough as we are. We don't need to do more. And we can kind of push past that normative way of thinking where it's like, oh, you have to just keep going. The show must go on no matter what. Well, sometimes the show doesn't have to go on. Sometimes the opportunity is thank you so much, but not this time. And, there will be another one. There will be. And we have to stop thinking about it so much in a scarcity model also. There will be other opportunities, there will be other opportunities and other times.
And our value isn't determined by our productivity, right? Which kind of goes back to the Black Triangle, right? Which labeled a bunch of folks as being not productive enough, right? And it's like this root concept is that your value is based on your productivity. And I think that's the harsh reject, right? Of just going, we reject that. And that's like, it's an outcome of colonialism, it's an outcome of white supremacy, it's an outcome of capitalism, to value life by its productivity. And I think like that's also what's so magical about creating these spaces, where that from the day that you start is like, we reject that and now we move forward. And what does that look like, right? Yeah.
Any other questions or thoughts or anything that you're sort of curious about sitting with after this discussion so far?
Or any other experiences, like if anyone else has worked in groups or collectives or want to share your experience, we'd also love to hear about, what you're doing and what's going on too.
I guess I will just say no experience I've had so far, but what really I'm now reflecting on from the video and from hearing Kim and Syrus speak after, and it was the Tarek talking about imposter syndrome and and feeling for people who are disabled or marginalized, otherwise, to really feel like it's a whole other level of imposter syndrome, because so many spaces are just not designed or built by people in mind. And we are not an explicitly like disabled marketer space, but it is so huge for us and what we do to be accessible and open for everyone and to build this community. And just as we really, thinking it's not enough to say, we will find ways to make it more accessible or easier for you, right? To like within the space, but to really have to be thinking of like creating a space that is inherently there and accessible to everybody, from the ground up, not just trying to add on things here and there to make it easier for people. And I think that's a difficult frame of mind to get into if you're not experiencing things personally, but that's so important, and that really just reiterated that for me really powerfully.
Thanks, Brent. I really appreciate that.
Hi, Brent. I have to give you credit publicly for saying that your group has worked really hard to make your events as accessible as possible. And I mean, just the idea that you came forward to the community to say, how do we do this better is fantastic. I mean, I'm not going to take any credit for being part of giving you guys some advice, but just the fact that you thought about it and it was part of everything that you did as you put things together, you need to be proud of that. People should know about it.
Well, thank you so much, and I will give you the credit, even if you don't take it for yourself. Is you and Peter was so instrumental in consulting and providing us with so much advice when we started out from sort of nothing and kind of grew much faster than expected. So we are constantly moving, scaling up spaces and having to rethink what we can do and what we should do to make our spaces accessible over and over again. So it's just it's so helpful and instrumental. So thank you.
I think as artists and participants, because we're coming from a variety of places, either from our body perspective, our mind perspective, whatever, if we go to an event, whether we're actually selling or creating or whatever, but if we see issues around disability, I really think that we need to speak up and advocate, not only for ourselves, but for other people who are coming in, whether it's, to a little festival craft sale in a place that has no washrooms or whatever it may be. If it's somewhere that we go, we need to speak up to whoever is the organizing body there and just let them know that they're not being accessible either to creators or to people who want to come in and either view the displays or buy or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. It's like one of the challenges that
well, it's a challenge because they don't have those challenges, so they don't always understand. It's not that they don't always just don't care until they've broken that leg and can't use it. They have no clue. So unless we point it out in a respectful manner and give them options, they have no clue, right? So yeah, sometimes I have a big mouth.
It makes me think about how we're all tabs, as they say, embodied, and that if we live long enough, we will all experience disability. But sometimes it takes that personal experience before people, really start to understand. And so, or a family member or someone, close to them. And so I do feel like we're always saying, but what about?
Yeah.
Very thankful to see some changes happening. There's more spaces I'm in than not that are either virtual options or if we're meeting together in person, there's an option for a comfortable seat or a lying down seat, and things that are a little bit shorter and not these super long days, which can be really hard for attention span and for just for access. Starting to see, some shifts that are making working with some of these institutions a little bit better, but there's so much work to do. There's so much change to happen. And I'm excited about all of the artists who are, going into these spaces and really, putting their elbows out and saying, hold on, let's make a bit more space and let's not slam the door after me. And let's make sure that there's more room for more of us to get to come into these spaces. And, the things that change benefit everybody. They really
Yeah.
benefit everybody. I can remember working on a project with the National Arts Center in Sarah Garten Stanley, and we were doing something at the Stratford Festival, and one of the programs that we wanted to do, we required that they build this ramp for this podium where everybody gave speeches, but surprise, surprise, there were steps to the podium, and we required that they built this ramp, but then of course forever and ever now there's a ramp to the podium, so everyone will benefit from the opportunity to be able to easily get up onto the stage. So these artists that we're working with through BTAC, and I think the artists that probably a lot of you are connected to, they're doing the work that's changing these places from the inside out, and that feels really exciting. And it benefits everybody. It benefits everybody.
And I think I'll take this opportunity to thank Elizabeth and Syrus for speaking today and bringing us so much information and great conversation. I really appreciated just how open this group was, and I feel like I learned a lot. And so thank you so much for showing up today and in all of our states of being and presenting for us today.
Thanks for the invitation, Cara. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. So it's really lovely to get to spend this time with you all.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Well, with that, I will let you all go. Hope you have a great rest of your day. And yeah, enjoy your weekend.